Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Get this, benefits of $70,000 to $100,000. What are they? That's what a family of four could have received in federal aid without working one single minute. No wonder half of small businesses in America can't get their workers back. They simply can't compete with free tax-exempt money. But what did those trillions of dollars in federal aid cost our country? And now that expanded unemployment benefits are gone, will Americans start going back to work? Mark Martin has the story.
About 7 million people are affected by the loss of those unemployment benefits. Some economists say ending them is good for the economy because it will encourage more people to return to the workforce. The pandemic-related benefits for unemployed workers over the past 18 months include aid to self-employed and gig workers, benefits for those who have been unemployed for more than 6 months, and a federal $300 weekly supplemental unemployment check. Congress passed the much-needed aid after the country's unprecedented COVID shutdown last year, a move that killed jobs and threw the brakes on a strong economy. Single mother April Stokes, who hasn't worked full-time since last year, says the extra money kept her family afloat, citing affordable child care as a major hurdle.
4 job interviews this week. Getting a job's never been an issue. It's what do I do with the kids when they get off at school at 4 until 7 o'clock when I get home from work.
Economist and former Trump economic advisor Steve Moore says the policies kept some from taking jobs.
Half of small businesses in America cannot get their workers back on the job. Enhanced food stamp benefits, increased payments to people for not working are making it very difficult for small businesses and medium-sized businesses, construction firms, restaurants, manufacturing firms, all throughout the country are just having a very difficult time getting people back on the job.
Moore pointed out just how generous the policies have been.
Families of 4 with no one working could get benefits of $70,000 to $100,000 and not work a single hour. So yes, these programs are deterring people from going back to work. And by the way, that's bad for our small businesses.
Businesses like Davis Professional in Chesapeake, Virginia.
It's hard to compete with free money right now.
Owner Jerry Flug even rolled up his sleeves to help.
It's all hands on deck. Over the past couple of weeks, we've jumped in the truck, cleaning carpets, stripping and waxing floors, whatever needed to be done.
According to the Labor Department, there are still 5.7 million fewer jobs than before the pandemic. Still, for those willing and able to work, some 10 million jobs are open.
Factory jobs are open, trucking jobs are open, business services jobs are open. And by the way, those are not poor-paying jobs. These are not, for the most part, minimum wage jobs. Many of them pay, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year to start. So it is good news. We're finally suspending these extra unemployment benefits.
Meanwhile, the Biden administration has encouraged states to use COVID relief money to keep the unemployment programs going, but none plan to do so. Mark Martin, CBN News.
Thanks, Mark. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what the government can do when it starts messing with the private economy. Our chief financial editor, Drew Parkhill, is here for more on the impact. Drew, what has this thing done to the employment? Are people ever going to go back to work?
Pat, when you drive around this area, and there's a lot of traffic out there, so the economy is strong, but you just see help wanted signs everywhere. I've never seen so many help wanted signs as I'm seeing now. All kinds of businesses, too. Now, I want to look at, bring you this poll that was done by Morning Consult a few weeks ago. They were asked, why aren't you going back to work? Why are you on unemployment? 13%, the number is basically tied for number 2 answer, said, I get enough money right from unemployment. And then you drop down to number 5, and another 12% said, I'm not being given enough money to return to work. Now, part of that may well be is because they're getting these generous unemployment benefits. And you could go deeper into the poll, but there are people who are openly saying, I'm just not, I'm getting enough money. I'm not going to get enough money if I go back to work compared to what I'm getting. So they're openly saying it.
Well, now we're talking about this incredible budget that they want to put through, and the numbers are just staggering. What's coming, and explain the political implications of this upcoming battle.
Okay, there are 2 aspects, Pat, to this budget. Now, we have talked here a lot about the $3.5 trillion price tag. Well, Axios reported last night that Joe Manchin, the Democratic senator from West Virginia, has been telling the White House he is not going to vote for that. He wrote a piece in the Wall Street Journal about it last week, and he said, you know, I might only support up to $1.5 trillion. That's way below what Bernie Sanders and the White House want and the progressives. So this is all going to be about Democrats versus Democrats on two fronts, Pat, and this is very important. Number one is the price tag, and number two is this policy. They're trying to turn us into Europe. Here was the New York Times headline from yesterday where they were talking about from cradle to grave. In other words, a European-style government with womb-to-tomb coverage. And that headline went on to say that it would touch virtually every American at every point in life from birth to old age. So that's a big thing. And that would institutionalize these programs. And what it would mean was they'd be a big, heavy weight on the economy because we're definitely talking about a lot of higher taxes. And let me conclude with this. You asked about the political implications, and Democrats will say, well, the polls show this is popular. Yeah, because the polls don't go very deep. But look at this poll, Pat, and I know you know politics. This was from a few weeks ago. More than 2/3 of voters in 33 swing districts and closely watched House districts polled by this group, No Labels, are concerned the high spending from Washington could hurt their pocketbooks through inflation, higher taxes, or other possibilities. So next year, when the House races are up and the Senate races, the Republicans would use big spending against the Democrats. They'd say, you're socialist, you're socialist, you're socialist. And you better believe a lot of Democrats in Congress are very aware of that.
Drew, thanks so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I told you there's going to be a tsunami. The question is whether we can recover with an inept president and the awful things that he and Kamala Harris are doing together, and whether it's possible to recover. But if we can hold on till that next House election, there's going to be a tsunami. People are so disgusted with so many things that are being done. The open border, they don't like. The disaster in Afghanistan, they don't like. But beyond that, they don't like the fact that there's inflation and that there haven't been adequate jobs and all the rest of it. And I tell you, the House is going to flip, the Senate is going to flip, and then it's a question of time before the White House goes. But the question is whether we can hold on long enough before all that happens. Well, in other news, a daring escape from Afghanistan. A Texas mother and her 3 children made a 300-mile journey through 20 Taliban checkpoints. So who helped them get out? And what about other stranded Americans? Why hasn't anyone been allowed to board 6 waiting planes? Oh, our wonderful State Department. Tara Mergener has more.
A Texas mother and her 3 kids making the dangerous 300-mile journey out of Afghanistan stopped at 20 Taliban checkpoints along the way, reportedly paying as much as $500 to $4,000 per person at every stop. A team of military veterans funded by private donations led the effort and said the State Department was of little help. As the Taliban claims total control of Afghanistan, 100 to 200 remaining Americans like Nazria are desperate to leave. She says the Taliban is going door to door trying to find them.
Am I going to end up living here? Am I going to end up dying here? What's going to happen?
In Mazar-e-Sharif, empty commercial planes that could carry some 600 passengers are still waiting for clearance from the Taliban. The State Department confirms Americans are among those stuck. The 6 private planes chartered to rescue Christians by conservative media host Glenn Beck's Charities.
They're not going to allow American citizens to leave until they get full recognition from the United States of America.
But the White House says there is no rush to recognize the Taliban as the official government of Afghanistan. Speaking in Doha, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said he is unaware of any, quote, hostage-type situation, and that Americans are among the groups stopped by the Taliban.
They have said that those without valid documents at this point can't leave. But because all of these people are grouped together, that's meant that flights have not been allowed to go.
Meanwhile, an email obtained by Fox News shows the State Department is putting restrictions on private evacuation flights over security concerns, stranding some Americans.
And the Taliban is now filling out posts in its new government. The cabinet includes several men on the U.S. and the UN terror list. 4 of them spent time in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, in the detainment facility before they were traded for an American soldier back in 2014. And Pat, by the way, the U.S. is offering a $10 million reward for one of them.
Well, Tara, I understand that the women are rising in public protests. What's happening to those women in Afghanistan?
Well, Pat, what they want is inclusion, equality, a voice in the new government. But what they're being met with is violence. Just yesterday, there were a couple of demonstrations, and witnesses say they were beat by sticks, by rifle butts, by metal pipes. They were tear gassed, and what finally broke everything up is the Taliban fired shots into the crowd. So it's going to be a very long road for these women who want to have any say in this government.
Tara, I'm personally shocked. What you're saying in this report is that we have airplanes that Glenn Beck or some private individuals have chartered airplanes. They're sitting there on the tarmac, and our own State Department won't give them clearance to take off. Did I hear that right?
Well, the Biden administration, claims it's the Taliban, but Plan B, that is a private group that is facilitating some of these flight evacuations, says it is actually the State Department that is holding up the whole show. But again, the Biden administration says that's not the case. It is the Taliban. What do you believe?
I heard, Tara, we did a report a few days ago that there were actually flights in the air with American citizens on board, and the State Department asked other countries not to give them clearance to land. Is that a true story?
I don't know. Nobody really knows for sure. But in the meantime, all of these passengers, some 600 passengers at least, are sitting on that ground, many Americans among them, not knowing if or when they're ever going to take off, and whether the State Department is responsible for some of this. I am sure that will come out in the days ahead. There are reports that there is evidence to prove that they are participating in some of this, Pat.
Thanks, Tara. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the most shocking abuse. You talk about, they say, well, why don't you impeach? Impeachment won't work. It won't be in time. But it's the most feckless, unbelievable violation of the oath of office to defend and protect the United States of America. We have a president who has cognitive impairment, and we have a Secretary of State who's incompetent, and the generals and others up and down the line, they're not getting the people out, and they've made terrible blunders. I know we shouldn't have gotten into this mess. I mean, a long time ago, we should have just been content to have a few of the Delta Force and SEAL team in there working and let the rest of it go. But we've gotten in there. But the coming out has just been an absolute disaster. It is probably the worst foreign policy disaster in the recent history of the United States of America. And the suffering people of those who worked with us, we no longer have credibility around the world anywhere. Nobody of our enemies fear us, and our allies don't want to work with us because they don't trust us. And they all know that we have a man in charge of this government who has cognitive impairment. He doesn't know what's going on. And then we have somebody who has a nervous laugh when she's told about tragedy. And where is she? She's not worrying about them. She's out in California doing campaigning for Governor Gary Newsom, who's facing a recall. So are they really concerned about all these Americans who are facing death? Not really. Biden not only is inept, he apparently has no compassion, and that's shocking. But also in the news, this was a shocker too. The Justice Department is urgently, use that term, quote, urgently exploring ways to challenge a strict new abortion law in Texas. Well, now, why would they be coming in to challenge a matter that is strictly in the state police power? The federal government shouldn't be doing that. But Merrick Garland is leading the charge, and think what would have happened if he was on the Supreme Court. Well, that's just one of many laws set to challenge Roe versus Wade, the Supreme Court. And meanwhile, the pro-life community has come up with a different approach to winning the abortion battle. It's kind of a good one. Charlotte E. Everett has this report.
After almost 50 years since the Supreme Court decision, people still spread wrong information about abortion and the life issue. This new tool, What to Say When, the complete new guide to discussing abortion, is designed to focus on converting hearts instead of winning arguments.
There's a lot of things that we naturally tend to say when abortion comes up that can either be insensitive to the other person or just plain wrong.
40 Days for Life President Steve Carney, co-author of the book, calls it an apologetics approach for pro-lifers.
We don't have an argument problem in the pro-life movement. We have a confidence problem. And a lot of people honestly don't know what to say when, and we've gotten thousands of requests for a book like this.
It includes how to respond to the popular My Body, My Choice slogan, adopted by abortion proponents.
There's a lot that our laws don't allow us to do with our own bodies. We have to wear seatbelts. We're actually not talking about the woman's body. The abortion takes place in the woman's body, but it's done to another body, which is then discarded.
Other topics include how to navigate the changing and often bizarre promotion of abortion, bringing the balance back more toward converting hearts instead of winning arguments, and knowing what to say or not say if and when the subject comes up.
Some of the new arguments being used by politicians or those in the media, or certainly the abortion industry, just get more bizarre and weird to the average person. And that was really the motivation for the book, to cover traditional arguments for abortion, but also to cover the new and strange and bizarre arguments that we hear.
In the end, Carney hopes to arm the pro-life community with the right information in order to defend those who can't speak for themselves.
I just think it's going to help people have confidence to go after hearts and minds, and there are ways to respect a person and not respect their points or their arguments, and we balance that in the book, and it's been proven to work.
What to Say When, the complete new guide to discussing abortion, is out this week, and it's available wherever books are sold. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Well, I don't know what arguments are being used, but there's one clear one. 60 million potential scientists, 60 million potential inventors, 60 million potential pastors, 60 million potential police officers, doctors, lawyers, leaders, mothers, fathers. 60 million have been aborted in this Holocaust. You figure what Adolf Hitler did, that was the most horrible thing you could conceive of. At best, the Holocaust in Germany amounted to about 50 million people, and this was a horrible, horrible thing that took place. But to think that we have killed more in America than Adolf Hitler killed, I say 50 million, yeah, that's about the right number, but 60 million here in America we have aborted, and it's too much. Roe versus Wade was a disaster. It was a setup by the ACLU. It was called Blackman's abortion. It had no constitutional authority. It was strictly using a material from Planned Parenthood, which was erroneous, and it was Roe versus Wade and Doe versus Bolton, two law cases that came up, and we've had a Holocaust ever since. And it's time to overturn it, and I think the Supreme Court is going to do it. And this is just one break in the dam, this one Texas law that apparently has survived some legal challenges.